Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. 7th fight. Sabaku no Gaara vs. Rock Lee. Begin. As soon as the fight started, sand started to flow out of Gaara's gourd. He controls sand. That could be annoying, Lee thought. He then charged Gaara, who just stood there, his arms crossed, looking almost bored. Lee threw a punch, only to find it blocked by sand. A kick, punch, kick, kick, punch. All blocked by sand flying from Gaara's gourd. Jumping backwards, Lee let out a frustrated sigh before attacking, again with taijutsu. Konoha Senpu Whirlwind, Lee said and gave a powerful spinning kick towards Gaara, but it was blocked again. What is Lee-san doing? Shouldn't he realize that taijutsu isn't going to work? He should do some ninjutsu. Sakura said. He can't. Tenchi said. Huh, Sakura? Ino and Naruto asked. It isn't that he isn't using them, it is that he can't use them. Guy said. Lee can't use chakra like us. So he can't use nin or. Tenchi explained. But that is why he will win. Guy said. Gaara apparently got bored of being attacked, so he sent the sand towards Lee, who took out a kunai and began to slash the sand. He tried to punch through the openings he made with his kunai, but was always blocked. Then he saw out of the corner of his eye that sand was coming up behind him and he had to dodge backwards. However, sand caught his foot and threw him towards the wall. He managed to stop himself from crashing into the wall by some impressive display of reflexes and flexibility. I don't think I can follow this match. Tenchi said. Why not? Naruto asked. He is Guy's student. Tenchi simply replied, making Guy put his chest out proudly. That's right. Lee's flames of youth burn more brightly than ever. Guy proclaimed to the world. The world, or rather Gaara's sand, replied by slamming Lee into the wall. Lee quickly got on his feet and threw some shuriken at Gaara. They were effortlessly stopped by the sand, which once again rushed at Lee. Lee jumped away from the wall and jumped backwards, but he tripped on some sand on the floor. What looked like a hand of sand came rushing towards him, intent on killing him. Ino and Sakura gasped as they thought Lee was crushed. Oi, oi, Shikamaru said, but Guy smirked and laughed slightly. Everyone then saw Lee doing backwards flips through the air before landing on the statue. Lee frowned in concentration, looking at Gaara's impassive face. Now you'll see why he'll win. Lee, take them off. Guy yelled. But Guy-sensei, I thought that was only for protecting someone important. Lee objected. I don't care. I'll allow it. Guy said. Lee laughed with glee, and Tenchi briefly wondered if he was going to cry. Then Lee sat down and removed his leg warmers. Are those? Shikamaru asked. You still use that, huh, Guy? Rin asked. Yosh. Now I can move better. Lee said while holding up 2 straps of weights. The weights had the signs for guts written on them. He then let go of the weights. Crap, Tenchi said and covered his ears. Not a moment too soon, since the weights hit the ground and made a deep impact, creating massive clouds of smoke. Most of the audience, including Hayate, almost popped their eyes out of their skulls, while Guy beamed at his student. Isn't that a bit much, Guy? Kakashi asked. Go, Lee, Guy yelled. Yes sir. Lee yelled back and vanished. Gaara's eyes widened and he looked around for where Lee was. Suddenly the green-clad boy appeared in front of Gaara, punching clean through the sand Gaara used to protect himself, but the punch didn't hit Gaara, since it was slowed down too much by the sand shield. Lee disappeared again, and reappeared behind Gaara, throwing a kick towards his head. Gaara whirled around, shocked at the display of speed. Lee kept disappearing and reappearing all around Gaara, punching and kicking. The sand kept up with Lee at first, blocking and protecting Gaara, but as Lee increased his speed even more, the punches and kicks came closer and closer to Gaara, who by now looked very surprised and confused. Almost scared. He's so fast. Naruto said. I've lost track of him. What's happening? Tenchi asked. But before anyone could answer, Lee appeared above Gaara, spinning and got a drop kick in. Gaara staggered backwards, a cut clear in his cheek. No, no way. Gaara was wounded. Temari stammered, fear very clear in her voice. What's going on? Kankuro asked. Lee vanished again, and the next thing Gaara knew was a fist in his previously unharmed cheek. The force sent Gaara sprawling. Lee got into his ready stance, a confident smile on his mouth. Gaara got up, shaking heavily. Sand fell from his face. What? Lee and Guy exclaimed at the same time. Someone tell me what's going on. Tenchi said, becoming more and more agitated. Lee hit Gaara 2 times, but now his face is crumbling. It looks like armor made of sand, stuck to his skin. Haku said, and Tenchi frowned. He's a defensive ninja. That's sand shield and armor. He's very difficult to damage. Kakashi said. Lee had apparently come to that conclusion as well. He started to undo the bandages covering his arms. He glanced up at Guy, who nodded, and Lee smiled. Lee crossed his hands in front of his face, while half crouching down. Prepare yourself, he said. No way. Guy, you didn't, Tenchi said as he felt the change within Lee. Huh? Sakura asked. He just opened one of his chakra gates. Tenchi said, and Guy smiled with pride. Chakra gates? Those 8 things that regulate chakra flow? Ino asked, and Tenchi nodded. Lee then charged towards Gaara, moving even faster than before. He moved in a circle around Gaara, kicking up dust behind him. Gaara, for some reason, looked confident again, his sand armor repaired again. Hurry up and come, Gaara said. As you wish, Lee said, and appeared under Gaara, kicking him upwards in the air. He followed up with several kicks, sending Gaara higher and higher into the air. Tenchi had trouble following Lee's movements, but he had no problem sensing Guy clamp his hands together in a praying motion. When his attention returned to the fight, Lee had begun to wrap his bandages around Gaara, before grabbing him and spinning towards the ground. Take this, Omid Renge. Initial Lotus, Lee shouted, and just before they hit the ground, Lee jumped away, leaving a defenseless Gaara to crash into the arena floor, leaving a huge cloud of dust, which cleared to show a rather large crater, and a Gaara that was staring emptily at the roof. Yes, Lee's won. Guy whooped loudly, while Lee smiled, although he was panting quite hard. No, he hasn't, Tenchi said, and everyone gasped to see the Gaara lying there, collapsing in on himself, showing that it was only a shell of sand, formed to look exactly like Gaara. Kawarimi. But how? Guy asked. When you were praying, Lee hesitated for a brief moment. Kakashi said. That was all the time Gaara needed. Haku added. But it is not surprising that Lee paused. The pain of using your muscles at their very limit is huge. You can literally feel them tearing and screaming. Rin said in a very serious tone, indicating that she knew the feeling herself. What? Where is he? Lee thought, looking wildly around him. That is, until Gaara rose from behind him in a pool of sand, smirking crazily. Oh no, it's him, Temari thought. Those eyes. He awoke. Kankuro thought, gripping the railings tightly. Tenchi too noticed the change in Gaara. He turned to Rin. Honey, how does Gaara look? He asked. Rin looked at him curiously, before replying. To be honest, he looks like he's crazy. His eyes hold a wild, almost feral look, practically screaming bloodlust. She said, and Tenchi sighed. Before he could say anything, their attention returned to the arena, where Lee was frantically dodging the sand attacks that Gaara sent his way, Gaara never losing his sick grin of satisfaction. Lee was having trouble, and more often than not, Gaara's seemingly half-hearted attacks hit and sent Lee flying. Why isn't Lee sand dodging? Sakura asked. With his speed, he should be able to dodge easily. Ino pointed out. Guy closed his eyes solemnly. It's not that he's not dodging, Guy began. But he can't. Tenchi broke in, making the Genins look from Guy to Tenchi, almost spraining their necks. Right now, his muscles are hurting so much that he can barely move. The result of using them without the usual restraint. Rin said, and only Sakura looked like she understood. Sakura-chan, what does that mean? Naruto asked. The human brain usually limits how much of our muscles we can use. If we used more, we would tear up our muscles. That is what Lee-san just did. He unlocked his muscles. Sakura explained, and Tenchi and Rin smiled brightly at her. Good job, Sakura, they both said, making said girl blush slightly. So, he's going to lose then? Naruto asked, and instantly Guy brightened up. No, he won't, Guy said, teeth sparkling, before he gave Lee, who looked up to his mentor and idol when he heard that statement. Lee was met with a smile, which seemed to trigger something inside the boy. When Gaara tried to crush Lee again, Lee moved away easily, coming back to the speed he had before the Omet range. How did you get your speed back? Gaara asked, almost sounding curious. Guy-sensei smiled at me. That's enough to make me much stronger. Lee said confidently. I have to use that. Sorry Guy-sensei, but I can't be the only one that loses here. Lee thought, looked up at Guy, who nodded again. Lee then started to vibrate. Or more precisely, the air around him did. No, not that, Tenchi exclaimed, not exactly calming down the already anxious genin. I'll end this now, Gaara said. That's right. Whatever the outcome, this will be the end. Lee said as even more air started to vibrate. The floor started cracking, and pieces of it lifted up around Lee by the sheer power. What's he doing? Naruto asked. He's opening his gates, Tenchi replied. Kakashi, who had revealed his Sharingan, turned to Guy. How many gates does the boy know how to open? Kakashi asked. 5, was the short reply, followed by gasps of surprise from the Junin listening, and Sakura. Why did you teach him that move? It's a double-edged sword, it'll hurt him just as he hurts his enemy. Kakashi said, before receiving a cold glare from Guy. What do you know about him? He has a wish to prove that he is a capable shinobi with just taijutsu, and I don't plan on stopping him. Guy said seriously. The onlookers noticed that Lee was growling, turning red, veins were popping out on his body and some droplets of blood flew upwards with the power. Tenchi turned his attention away from Lee to Guy. Nevertheless, he will probably not be able to be a shinobi after this. You should know how much that damages the body. Tenchi said. That seemed to strike a nerve, if Guy's shudder was any indication. He opened the third gate. He'll start now, Kakashi pointed out, but Guy shook his head. Not yet. Lee crouched down, being very red now, eyes wide and everyone could literally see the power around him. Fourth gate. Kai, Lee yelled, and even more veins popped out, throbbing wildly. The floor under him was virtually disintegrated. Here I come, Lee said, and in an instant he was under Gaara with a fierce kick to the chin. The floor behind, previously between the two, had been completely decimated, a testament to Lee's power. Gaara flew upwards again, but this time was different. Instead of following like last time, Lee disappeared again. Where is he? Ino asked. Guy smiled a little at that, knowing full well where Lee was. Said boy appeared behind Gaara, giving him a strong punch to the back, sending Gaara flying towards the wall. Lee appeared in front of Gaara, giving another punch. That's so fast. Is he faster than Sensei? Naruto wondered out loud. He didn't get a reply. Lee kept appearing, hitting and disappearing, making Gaara look like a pinball, his sand armor getting peeled more and more off. Then Lee appeared above Gaara. You are a tough one. Take this. Fifth gate. Forest gate. Kai. Lee yelled. A blue outline was around him for a moment. Gaara looked frightened and brought his guard up. But just before Lee hit, he disappeared and reappeared beneath Gaara's guard, with a powerful punch to Gaara's stomach. Gaara was sent towards the ground, but was stopped by his own belt, which Lee had grabbed onto. Lee roared and pulled Gaara towards him. Take this. Ura Renge, primary lotus. Lee yelled and hit Gaara with a punch and kick, simultaneously. The next thing the audience knew was that an explosion went off, filling the entire arena with dust. They could also hear Lee's scream of pain. When the dust cleared, they saw Lee lying on the floor, panting. A crater was also very visible, and in the middle, a very beat-up Gaara lay. Unfortunately for Lee, Gaara had managed to use his sand to form a cushion that he landed on, reducing the damage significantly. Even with the cushion, Gaara was barely able to move, but he shakily lifted his hand and pointed it towards Lee. Lee tried to get up, but fell down right away. No way, I hit him, and he can still move. Lee thought, and continued to try and move. But his muscles had ripped under the strain, so he couldn't move much. Sand started to flow towards Lee, and even though Lee tried to wave it off, sand surrounded his left arm and leg. Sabaku Suso. Desert coffin, Gaara said and closed his fist. Lee gave a scream, while the sickening sound of crushing bone could be heard. Not yet, Lee thought as he fell to the ground. More sand moved towards him. Die, Gaara said, but a green blur stopped the sand. Guy stood protectively in front of Lee, a grim look on his face. Gaara stared at Guy, before suddenly clutching his head in agony. Why did you save him? Gaara asked, his very words indicating pain. Because he is an important subordinate that I love, Guy said firmly. Gaara got a look of confusion on his face, before all the sand laying around the arena went back to form his gourd again. I'm done, Gaara said and walked towards the stands. Rin looked at Lee, and saw he was about to stand. She, along with Tsunade, jumped down and placed the still unconscious Lee on a stretcher. Winner, Sabaku no Gaara, Hayate said. He tried to stand, even when unconscious. Guy asked, tears sliding down his face. Rin and Tsunade looked grim. Tsunade followed Lee and some other medics away from the arena, while Rin turned to Guy. We don't know for certain yet, but it looks like Tenchi was right. The damage done is huge. We'll try, but we can't be certain yet, Rin said before walking up to stand next to Tenchi, who hugged her. After a while, and some very hasty improvements to the destroyed arena, and after leading an apparently shell-shocked Guy away, the next fight could start. Cough cough, can Tsurugi Masumi and Sabaku no Kankuro come down please? Hayate asked. The two of them moved down, and stood in front of each other. Fighters ready. Cough 8 fight, begin. Hayate said and jumped away. Kankuro reached behind him and pulled off the wrapped bundle behind him. Masumi wouldn't let him prepare in peace though. I won't let you. The victory goes to the fastest, Masumi said and charged Kankuro. Kankuro blocked the punch but was shocked when Masumi wrapped his hand and body, quite literally, around Kankuro. Not unlike a snake. Interesting ability, Haku said and Rin nodded. He uses chakra to do that. Right, Ino asked and Tenchi nodded. I don't know what your tool is, but I won't let you use it. Now give up, before I break your neck, Masumi threatened. Hey, idiot, Kankuro said. A loud breaking noise came and Masumi gave a sound of disgust. That idiot. Now I broke his neck, Masumi said, but then Kankuro moved his head completely around. Sand fell from his face, revealing a puppet. The wrapped thing, that had fallen to the ground earlier, unwrapped and revealed Kankuro, chakra threads coming from his hand into the puppet. Said puppet moved quickly and wrapped its hands around Masumi. If I break your bones, you'll be even softer, right? Kankuro asked and the puppet tightened its hold. I give. Masumi didn't even get to finish giving up before a loud cracking sound came and he didn't say anything else. Cough winner Sabaku no Kankuro. Hayate said. How cold. He broke his back, just like that. Ino said and Tenchi sighed sadly. Yes, we shinobi have to be cold. It's the only way to stay alive, he said. Rin tightened the grip she had on his arm. I wonder who's next, Naruto said and Ino gulped slightly, since she hadn't fought yet. The names flashed again, and when they stopped, several people groaned. When he heard the names get called, Tenchi tensed noticeably. Ninth fight. Hyuga Hinata against Hyuga Neji. Begin. Cough. Hayate said. Hinata stood in front of Neji, shaking slightly. She looked like she wanted to run, rather than fight. Neji, the genius of the Hyuga clan, noticed this. Hinata-sama, you should give up. You can't win. Neji said coldly. Neji Nisan. Hinata said. Nisan. Sakura asked. They are cousins. Hinata is from the main house, while Neji is from the branch house. Tenshi replied. Neji then activated his Byakugan, veins pulsating next to his eyes, which suddenly got cracks in them and palled from pale violet to white. Hinata started shaking more and more, bringing a hand up in front of her, touching her lips. Neji remained motionless. After a few minutes of Neji not moving, and Hinata shaking, Neji spoke up. Give up. Hinata-sama, your body says clearly that you are scared. The way your eyes move tells me that you are recalling a past incident, and that you are remembering pain. The way you put your arm in front of you shows that you want to put a wall between you and me, and touching your lips is a sign that you are trying to calm yourself down. Neji said in a monotone voice. You will always be weak. There is a reason for the words, genius, and drop out. It is our destiny to always be separated by an unchangeable void called birthright. Some are born to be strong, while some, like yourself, are born to be weak. You should, Neji said, but was cut off by two simultaneous yells. Shut up. Naruto and Ino yelled together, both so mad that their killing intent startled Neji, not that he let it show. Hinata, though, looked shocked at the two. Hinata, don't just stand there. Show the bastard that you aren't weak. Show him just how strong you are. Naruto yelled. Neji snorted and looked back at Hinata. And was shocked to see that she didn't look scared anymore. She looked determined. Thank you Naruto-kun, Ino-san. I won't give up. That is my ninja way, Hinata thought. She looked up at Tenshi and Rin, and found that both were smiling brightly at her, encouraging her to do her best. She smiled back, before activating her Byakugan and sliding into the Jiyuken stance, her right leg bent in front of the other, her left hand pointed towards Neji, palm first, while the right hand was by her hip. So, you aren't going to back down. Very well, Neji said with a smirk and mirrored Hinata's pose. Jiyuken, Rin said and Tenshi frowned. What is that? Shikamaru asked. A taijutsu style that attacks the chakra pathways. It is the Hyuga clan's most feared weapon. Tenshi replied. Then the two combatants were off, charging at each other. They met and started hitting each other with their open palms. For most of the audience, it looked rather dull, since they were only palming each other. Hinata tried to palm Neji's stomach, but Neji blocked and sent a palm towards Hinata's chest. She dodged to the left and tried to strike back. Neji dodged as well. This went on for a while. Sensei, what are they doing? Naruto asked. Jiyuken, you can't see it, but if you stop focusing on seeing it, you'll sense what's happening. Tenshi replied. Immediately, Naruto, Sakura and Ino closed their eyes and tried to sense what went on. Then they felt chakra, not all that much, come from each palm strike that Hinata and Neji sent towards each other. When their attack lands, they push a bit of chakra into their opponent. It isn't strong enough to be felt while you are trying to see what they are doing. Tenshi explained. The fight continued like that for a while, neither of the two Hyuga gaining the upper hand. Then Tenshi sighed. What? Rin asked. Playing. He's just playing with her. Tenshi said. True enough. Hinata looked winded, while Neji had a confident smirk on his face. Then Hinata charged Neji and got in a palm strike to his chest. Yes, she did it. Naruto and Ino cheered. Sakura, who was looking at Tenshi, saw the grimace on his face. Sensei? She asked hesitantly. He didn't answer. Hinata panted before coughing up blood from Neji's counter-attack. What? But she hit as well. Naruto said. Yeah, with a palm. Haku replied. Just then, Neji lifted Hinata's sleeve and revealed angry red bruises on her skin, each bruise as large as one of Haku's needles. You, all this time. Hinata panted forth. That's right. I sealed yours. Now you can't use Jiyuken. Neji replied. Hinata looked crushed, before she took a glance up at Naruto and Tenchi. Confidence and determination filled her again, and she slapped Neji's hand away and tried to strike him again. Neji acted quickly and struck Hinata in the chest, sending her flying backwards. She rolled a few times before stopping, and when she tried to get up, she started coughing up blood. Shaking, she got up, and got into her taijutsu stance again. She's going to continue? Tenchi asked. He was impressed with Hinata's courage and determination, but he knew she should give up. Hinata then rushed towards Neji again, trying to hit him, but he just dodged and blocked, before he struck Hinata in the chest again, this time with a much larger chakra attack, so large it moved straight through Hinata and out her back, sending her flying again. Give up. You can't win. When you got me as your opponent, you were fated to lose. You can't change your fate. Neji said. Hinata tried to stand up, and after some failed attempts, and a lot of shaking, she managed to stand up, holding her chest and wheezing painfully. You can. Hinata. Show him who's boss. Naruto yelled. Hinata smiled at him before she looked at Neji again. Neji looked angry. So everyone sides with the precious heir. You really are a spoiled main house member. I can see you're suffering because of your weakness in the main house. Neji growled. You're wrong, Neji-Nisan. I'm not the only one suffering in the Hyuga. I can see you suffering as well. Hinata said. Neji became very angry at that, and charged towards Hinata, fully intent on killing her. Wait, Neji-kun. This fight is over. Hayate yelled while trying to intercept the Hyuga. Kakashi, Guy and Kurenai also tried. All four of them were beaten, however, by Tenchi and Haku. Haku grabbed Neji's right hand, held it in a vice-like grip, while holding some needles to Neji's neck. Tenchi grabbed Neji's left hand, while holding a Rasengan towards Neji's head. Both Tenchi and Haku had moved so fast, Neji had only been able to take one step. The four Junin stood around the three as well. Does the main house get so much special treatment? Neji asked. Tenchi looked impassively at Neji, squeezing his hand harder. Hinata does. And you won. She can't fight on. Tenchi said, his voice so very cold. He and Haku then let go of Neji. Guy looked disapprovingly at his student. Neji, you promised me you wouldn't argue about the main and branch house. Guy said. Just then, Hinata started coughing and fell down. Before she hit the ground, Tenchi caught her. Kurenai rushed over, and Rin followed closely behind. Rin started treating Hinata, looking really grim. He was aiming to kill her. She commented. Naruto had jumped down just in time to hear her. He turned to Neji, just resisting attacking. You look like you want to say something, drop out. Neji taunted. Naruto didn't reply, instead he turned to look at Hinata. You should stop cheering for people you don't know. A ninja, Neji started, but stopped when he felt a strong killing intent. Naruto waited until he saw Hinata open her eyes, before speaking. For Hinata, I'll make you pay. Naruto said. Tenchi smiled at that, and Hinata looked like she wanted to cry. I'll have to get her to the hospital. Rin said to some of the medics. They nodded and gently lifted Hinata in the air. Before they could walk away, Naruto grabbed Hinata's hand, gave it a gentle, but firm squeeze before letting go. He watched as Hinata was rushed away, Rin running along to help. Tenchi grabbed Naruto's shoulder. They walked up the stairs together with Haku, ignoring the smug Neji. Winner, Hyuga Neji, Hayate said, but he sounded like he didn't want to say that. Will the two remaining genin come down here? Cough. Hayate asked and Ino and Tenten walked down. Both looked anxious to get going. 10th fight, Yamanaka Ino against Tenten. Begin. Hayate called. The two jumped back, putting some distance between each other. Come on. You can do it, Ino-chan. Naruto yelled. Go Ten. Show everyone your burning flames of youth. Guy yelled, and everyone else wondered who was more loud. Don't lose Ino, Sakura yelled, joining the who's loudest contest. Geez, our cheerleaders are really loud. Tenten commented. Ino smiled. Yeah, although I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want mine any other way. I just wish Sensei could get out of his weapon mode a little faster. Ino said. You can do it, Ino. Tenchi said, back to his normal self, loud enough for them to hear, not loud enough to join the contest. Never mind, Ino said, a bright smile on her face. At least your sensei isn't insane. Tenten mumbled. Those that heard Ino, Naruto, Tenchi and Hayate, snorted and/or coughed to hold in their laughter. Silence lowered itself over the arena, the two combatants stood staring at each other. Wow, Rin said and Tenchi nodded. Yeah, Tenten is amazing. He said. Hey, what about Ino-chan? Naruto asked, angry that his sensei apparently liked the opponent more than his student. Calm down, Naruto. I only meant that Tenten was good. Look at the distance she has to Ino. She's not too far, or too close. Tenchi said. This way, she can deal with defense and offense without much problem. Rin joined in. Oh, Naruto and Sakura said. Ino, who heard Tenchi and Rin, frowned. So, she can deal with my offense and defense in a moment's notice. Oh, I got it. Ino thought and grinned towards Tenten, who got slightly uneasy because of that grin. She has something planned. Can't let her. Tenten thought and threw 4 shuriken towards Ino. Suddenly, right before they hit Ino, the shuriken stopped and fell down on the ground. What? I missed it? Tenten asked. She looked at Ino, who smirked confidently, completely missing the very proud look Tenchi wore. Chakra came from that blondie. Neji said, having activated his Byakugan. Chakra pulse. Sensei taught it to me. I can't use it to see, but I can use it to stop projectile weapons. Like shuriken. Ino said, pride evident in her voice. Naruto and Sakura glared at Tenchi, whose sweat dropped. You didn't teach us that. They said. Tenchi chuckled nervously before scratching his head and sighing. Sorry. He tried. Naruto and Sakura sighed before turning back to the fight. Tenten was impressed. So, she can stop weapons with her chakra. Kind of like Neji. Let's test how many weapons she can stop. Tenten thought before she started running around Ino, going in a perfect half circle. She took out a scroll and jumped into the air. She unrolled the scroll and started spinning, the scroll around her. She picked up speed and became a blur. Ino gawked as weapons, lots and lots of weapons came flying out of the spinning blur that was Tenten. Realizing the danger she was in, Ino formed some seals and a visible wall of chakra formed in front of her. Just in time too, since not even a second later, the first weapon, a katana, hit the wall and bounced off. More and more followed, katana, kunai, shuriken, needles, throwing knives. All sorts of weapons came flying, and Ino started sweating more and more, struggling to hold up the wall. Suddenly Ino's eyes widened as a spiked ball, probably weighing a lot, hit the chakra wall. The wall shattered and Ino had to dodge and jump away as the remaining weapons hit the ground, where Ino stood a moment ago. Tenten landed and smiled at Ino, her scroll floating down beside her. So, your wall isn't that strong, is it? That means I just have to destroy the wall and make it so you can't dodge. Tenten said and took out 2 scrolls. She is going to use that already. Guy said. Neji didn't reply. I won't let you. Ino said while doing some seals. Oh no, not that. Naruto said, recognizing the seals. Tenchi, who understood what was going to happen, grabbed his sunglasses and handed them to Haku, while holding a hand over Sakura's eyes. Naruto closed his eyes and held his hands over his eyes as a safety measure. Furashu no. Ino called, holding her hands out and forming a triangle shape with her fingers. A flash came, so bright it looked like the sun had been thrown into Ino's hands. Everyone closed their eyes, and yells of pain came, since most of the people watching felt like their eyes were burning. After a while, everyone's sight began to clear. Thank God she held back. Naruto mumbled. She did. Tenchi asked. Sensei. You can let go now. Sakura said. Tenchi did and scratched his head while smiling sheepishly. The effect was somewhat ruined by the empty eye sockets. What happened to Tenten? Guy asked after his sight returned, although he was somewhat annoyed by the huge white blob in the middle of his sight. When he heard a groan behind him, he turned to see Neji, who lay on the floor, clutching his head. Neji, you alright? Guy asked. Bright light, Neji mumbled and Guy's sweat dropped. Guy decided to ignore the Hyuga and turned back to the arena. There he saw Tenten laying on the floor, twitching, holding her eyes shut. Hayate was remarkably similar to Tenten, only his twitching was interrupted by coughing fits. Ino was nowhere to be seen. After a few minutes, Tenten stopped twitching and got up. She looked around, blinking a lot. Where are you? Tenten asked, still blinking. Then Ino appeared in front of Tenten, smirking. You should be glad you are a comrade. I don't kill comrades, Ino said, confidence literally rolling off her voice. What are you talking about? Tenten said, but stopped when Ino puffed into a cloud of smoke. Kage Bunshin, Tenten said. She looked around and gasped loudly. In a circle around Tenten, 8 Inos stood, all holding one seal each. One of Sensei's assassination tactics. Overwhelm the enemy. If you don't give up, you'll be hit with 8, all of them deadly. The Inos said. And if I dodge? Tenten asked. Well, that will be difficult, since you can't move. Ino said. Tenten wondered what she meant, but sure enough, her body refused to move. She looked down and saw chakra strings attached to her feet and arms. The strings went to the Inos. Tenten gulped and nodded. I give up, she said. Winner. Yamanaka Ino, Hayate said. Immediately Ino let Tenten go, and her 7 Kage Bunshins puffed away. Good match. You almost had me with those weapons. Ino said, smiling happily. As much as I hate to say it, you were good as well. Much better than me. Tenchi must be a good teacher. Tenten said, making Guy glare at an oblivious Tenchi. After lots of congratulations for Ino, the winners of the matches assembled in the arena. Congratulations on passing the preliminaries. Cough if you would all come and draw a number from this box. Hayate said and indicated to a box Anko was holding. After the 9 finalists that weren't in the hospital had drawn their numbers, each told Ibiki their number. He then scribbled something down on a note of paper. When he finished, he held it out for everyone to see. He must be 7 then. Ibiki thought, referring to Sasuke. This is the match-up of the main matches, which will be a tournament. Take a good look at the lineup. Ibiki said. First match. Yamanaka Ino vs. Nara Shikamaru. Second match. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Hyuga Neji. Third match. Haruno Sakura vs. Sabaku no Kankuro. Fourth match. Uchiha Sasuke vs. Sabaku no Gaara. Fifth match. Aburame Shino vs. Dosu Kinyuda. You have a month to train before the main matches. I suggest you use that time well. Sandame said with a kind smile on his face. Why a month? Shikamaru asked. Because we have to send out invitations for everyone who has to be here to witness the exam. The judges will decide who becomes Chunin and not. Sandame replied. Judges? Sakura asked. In this exam, the ones who get promoted to Chunin are those that show the judges that they have the qualities of a Chunin. A ninja's true strength can only be measured in combat, and that is the purpose of the main matches. Judges are made up of important people from the villages, as known as the daimyo of the different countries. Sandame explained. The second exam is finished. Meet in the main arena in a month. Dismissed. Anko barked. Tenchi, Haku, Guy and Kakashi were talking to the Hokage, when Naruto came running over and stopped next to Tenchi. Sensei, can I ask you something? Naruto asked, sounding very nervous. Ino and Sakura came walking over, looking like they didn't know what was going on. Sure. What is it, Naruto? Tenchi replied with a smile. Can you tell me about my parents? Naruto asked. Sakura and Ino looked at Naruto, while Sandame, Haku, Guy and Kakashi looked at Tenchi, who stiffened noticeably. Tenchi turned to Naruto, as if looking at him. After a few moments, he sighed and rubbed his temples. Alright, but not here. Come to my place tomorrow. We'll talk there, Tenchi said. Naruto beamed. Thanks, sensei, he said. Tenchi simply nodded in response. So, what now, Tenchi? Sandame asked. I'm going to the hospital. To see how Hinata is doing. Tenchi replied before turning to leave. Say hello to Rin from me. Kakashi said. A very nervous Naruto, and two concerned girlfriends walked to their sensei's apartment. Naruto had asked Sakura and Ino to join in. He wanted them to hear this as well, although he wasn't completely sure why. When they arrived, it was Haku that answered. She nodded at them and led them towards the garden. There they saw Tenchi sitting in his favorite place, under the sakura tree. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Sensei? Sakura asked. Are you alright? Ino wondered. I'm fine, Tenchi replied, although he didn't sound fine at all. How was Hinata? Naruto asked. Tenchi smiled slightly at that. Let's just say that Rin deserves her reputation as an excellent medical nin. Tenchi said. So, will Hinata be alright? Ino asked and Tenchi nodded. Yeah, she will make a complete recovery soon. Although Neji doesn't have anything to do with that. He really tried to kill her. You better beat some sense into the bastard when you fight, Naruto. Tenchi said and Naruto nodded. Will do. I have a punch with his name on it. Naruto replied. Tenchi chuckled at that, before he became serious again. So, you wanted to hear about your parents? He asked and Naruto nodded. Yeah, when I was signing the summoning contract for the Toads, I saw Yondaime's name next to mine. What I hadn't noticed before, was that he was named Uzumaki as well. Ero Sennin wouldn't answer any questions. He told me to ask you. Naruto said. Yeah, of course he would. Now I can't beat him up. Damn pervert. Tenchi grumbled before sighing and straightening. Alright, listen up. I'll tell you about your parents. Tenchi said. Naruto, Sakura, Ino and Haku shifted so they could hear easier. As you probably guessed, your father was Uzumaki Arashi, also known as the Yondaime Hokage. Your mother, Tenchi sighed and took a few calming breaths. Your mother was Kazama Motoko. They kept their marriage a secret, mostly to protect your mother. She was a civilian, and your dad had a lot of enemies that would love to use her against him. They married before I was born, and she helped raise me. Actually, she probably saved my life a few times. Tenchi said and chuckled slightly. How? Naruto asked. How did she save my life? Well, she fed me for one. And stopped Arashi from training me all day long. He would sometimes forget that I needed to eat and sleep. Motoko wouldn't though. She was a very kind woman, although I remember she was very scared when she was angry. She was also the kind of person, never to be brought down by anything. She would always smile and see things from the bright side. Something you have inherited, Naruto. Tenchi said and smiled at Naruto before continuing. Motoko was a very beautiful woman. Hey, I often thought she was an angel. A lot of other people, both men and women, thought like that as well. Arashi had some competition, but she never had eyes for anyone but him. If I remember right, she said she had a crush on him since they were both kids. Although he didn't realize until, as she put it, she grew up. Then he fell head over heels for her. She told me it was rather amusing. Tenchi said and chuckled. My dad, tell me about him. Naruto asked eagerly. Well, he was the Yondaime Hokage, and every bit as great as the stories say. Even before he became Hokage, he was very strong, but kind and gentle at the same time. He always took care of his comrades, and he was feared by his enemies. Konoha's Yellow Flash was the nickname that he was known by, mostly because of his blonde hair and that enabled him to move in a flash. Tenchi said but was interrupted by Ino. Can you do that? She asked. I could. But now that I can't see, I'm not too sure. I haven't really tried yet. Tenchi replied. So, who was faster? You or my dad? Naruto asked. He has always been faster. Even at my fastest, I haven't reached his speed. I have been close, but not quite. As far as I know, Arashi was the fastest ninja ever. Tenchi replied, making Naruto feel proud. Sensei, what happened to Motoko-san? We know Yondaime-sama died sealing the Kyuubi into Naruto-kun, but not what happened to her. Sakura asked. Tenchi sighed and looked at the sky. When Motoko said she was pregnant with Naruto, I have never seen anyone as happy as Arashi was. The two of them had so big plans for you, Naruto. But then Kyuubi attacked, right before you were born. We were able to drive him back several times, but it was clear that we were fighting a lost battle. Arashi and Sandaime-sama spent long hours planning how to fight the fox. But they couldn't think of anything. And the fact that Motoko was in labor was a very distracting factor for Arashi. You were born, but something had gone wrong. Motoko was only able to hold you for a short while before she died. How did mom die? Naruto asked. Tenchi suddenly looked 10 years older. I don't remember. Something about being in labor for too long, or the stress of the situation. I didn't really pay much attention to that at the time. But Arashi broke. He lost a large, very large, part of his life. I wasn't too happy either, but I had to leave Arashi and you. I went to help hold Kyuubi, and the next thing I knew after using the teni was that Arashi was there on Gamabunta, holding you and doing something. He sealed Kyuubi inside you and died. His last wish was that you'd be seen as a hero. We all know how that went. Tenchi finished sadly. Sakura and Ino looked at Naruto, who had his head bowed. When he spoke, his voice sounded gruff. How did mom and dad really feel for Konoha? He asked. They both loved this whole village very much. And they wanted you to help protect it. Which I am sure you will, someday. I know that they loved you very much, and that they would be proud of you if they saw you now. Tenchi said and Naruto smiled. I'll make them proud. I'll surpass dad, and make the villagers see who I am. He said, while jumping up and pumping his fist into the air. Sakura and Ino smiled at him, while Haku looked at Tenchi. Can you tell us more? She asked. Naruto stopped his little rant and sat down again. Tenchi frowned a bit. No, I don't think so. I don't remember much more. What I do remember I'm sure that you four know already. At least slightly. Tenchi replied. What? The four, eagerly listening kids asked. Well, Arashi was known to be able to defeat a whole army of enemies by himself, using one of his 3 signatures. That is called Hiroshin. I can still use that, even though I am blind. What it does is that the user throws a special kunai with 3 prongs. When that kunai is thrown, the user, originally Arashi, feels it. When it lands, the user can use the Hiroshin and instantly move to where the kunai is. For instance, if I were to throw the kunai from here into the Hokage monument, then I would feel that it was thrown, I would feel that it hit the ground and I could instantly be where the kunai is now, even before it hits the ground. It is very difficult, and dangerous if used wrong. Tenchi said and his audience looked shocked. Wow, that sounded really useful. Sakura said. But does it have to be the user that throws the kunai? Ino asked. Tenchi shook his head. No. In fact, I have been meaning to get you 3 each, so that if you need me, you could just throw the kunai, and I would feel it. I just haven't had the time to go and get the kunai made. Tenchi replied. That's so cool. Do you think I can learn it? Naruto asked. That, you have to ask Jiraiya. He is the one going to teach you before the main matches. Which reminds me, make sure you show Tsunade that you can summon Gamabunta. Better make it soon. Tenchi said and Naruto nodded. Thanks, for telling me about my parents. At least I know a little bit about them now. Naruto said sadly. Cheer up, kid. They wouldn't want you to be depressed. Tenchi said, and Naruto nodded before jumping up. Yeah, I can't sit around, feeling sorry for myself. I have two beautiful girlfriends. I don't need anything else. Naruto said, not noticing the blushes his girlfriends had, which only increased when he bent down and gave each of them a kiss. Alright, now get out of here and get training. Tenchi said. Yes, sir. Naruto said and started to leave, but Tenchi stopped him. I just remembered something else. It seems that tastes for certain foods are heritable. Tenchi said with a smile. You mean? Naruto asked. Yeah, Arashi was a ramen fanatic, like you. And Motoko hated vegetables, unless they were cooked by Arashi, and that was just because he made them. So it seems you got more from your parents than just looks. Tenchi said amusedly. Wow, my mom didn't like vegetables. She sounded like the best mom ever. Naruto said. The other four in the garden laughed at that. Yo, Kin Ryu Chikara here. 15 chap finished. Phew, that took some time. Hiroshин, I'm not sure if Yondaime actually had that, or if he was named Arashi. But both are popular in the fanfic society, so I decided to use them both. I hope everyone enjoyed the preliminaries, although they were mostly like the anime manga. Sorry, I didn't want to use too much time on those fights. Yo, Kin Ryu Chikara here. I just had to answer some reviews this time. Here goes. Holy moly, thanks I guess. I don't really know how to respond to all that praise, but thanks. A big ego lift, that's for sure. I hope the fluff in this chapter is enough, although I doubt it. And no, I won't reveal when I plan to end this, although I know exactly where, when and how I'm ending this. Full Metal Sosuke, thanks for the translation on Hiroshин. I didn't know that. Mega090 Why should my story be just like the manga? The whole point of fanfiction is to write stories not like the manga. At least that is what I think. And thanks to all my other reviewers as well. Flash's good guy pose. Okay, on to the chapter. Tsunade no Obasan. I have won the bet. Naruto yelled. Tsunade, Tenchi, Rin and Haku had just walked into the training grounds where Naruto and a reluctant Jiraiya were. Four of them winced at his words, while Tsunade herself was fuming. Who she was to be angry at, she didn't know quite, but chose her former teammate. Ah, wait. Jiraiya screamed before he was met with a punch that sent him flying out of the grounds. Why did you do that, Obasan? Naruto asked. Before Tsunade could react, Tenchi appeared in front of Naruto, grabbed him and sprinted a little away. Putting Naruto down again, Tenchi sighed. Listen, Naruto, if you don't want to end up like Jiraiya, then I suggest you lay off the old woman crap. Tsunade could literally beat the shit out of you. Consider this a warning. Now go and summon Gamabunta before she runs off to a gambling parlor or something. Tenchi whispered. Naruto looked confused at first, not that Tenchi would have known, before nodding. Alright, Naruto said before running to the middle of the training ground. Watch this and weep, Naruto said, bit his thumb and formed the seals before shouting. No. A large puff of smoke later, and Naruto was seated on top of Gamabunta's head. Oi, brat, what's the deal? Gamabunta bellowed. Naruto grinned and hopped down on Gamabunta's nose. Just winning the bet, boss. Naruto replied. Gamabunta looked down at the shocked Tsunade. Hey, well I guess you've made your point. See you later, kid. Oh, and when you get older, you and I are going to have our own sake together. Gamabunta said. Yes, sir. Naruto replied, giving a salute to the frog. Gamabunta smiled before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto smirked while walking up to Tsunade. See, I won. Take that, Naruto shouted. What did you say? Tsunade growled. She stomped over to him and flicked his forehead protector off again. When Naruto saw her finger coming to give him a flick again, he closed his eyes. but instead he felt something warm and soft press onto his forehead. His eyes flew open and he saw Tsunade kissing his forehead. He also felt her putting something around his neck, before pulling back and giving a weak push to his chest. She smiled at him with a faint blush on her cheeks. "Become a good man," she said, "and an excellent Hokage," she added in her thoughts. Naruto looked stunned for a moment, before he looked down and saw the necklace Tsunade had given him. He looked back up at her, and smiled brightly. "Sure thing," he said enthusiastically. Tenchi smiled and walked over to the two blondes. "Well done, Naruto. Come on, let's go get something to eat. Ramen's on me," Tenchi said, and Naruto jumped into the air. "Yay!" he shouted, and the others chuckled at him. Tsunade hadn't managed to eat anything. Her chopsticks were frozen halfway to her open mouth, her noodles splashed in her bowl, and her eyes were open wide and staring at Naruto, who was shoveling down ramen at a speed no one should be able to. Tenchi, Rin and Haku were eating calmly, seemingly unaffected. "Miss, your ramen is getting cold," Ayame said. Tsunade snapped out of her daze and started eating. By the time she had finished her bowl, Naruto had eaten 7. "Ah, that was good. Old man, your ramen is the best," Naruto said while patting his stomach. Tuki, the ramen guy, smiled at his best customer. "Thanks, Naruto. I'd give you a free bowl for that, but since you're full, I'll give it to you later," he said, and Naruto yelled in a joy. "Free ramen. Yay." When they left, Tenchi mourning his very deflated wallet, Tsunade looked at Naruto. How can he even walk? With all that ramen he should be rolling. Tsunade was cut out of her thoughts by Naruto's voice. "Hey, Tsunade no Bakken. How is Sakura?" "Ow!" Naruto yelled, holding his head where a growing lump could be seen. "Don't call me that," Tsunade yelled. "Oh wow." Naruto whimpered. Anyway, I think Naruto was interested in Sakura's progress," Tenchi said, and Naruto nodded. Tsunade thought for a bit, ignoring Rin's practically begging look. "Well, she is a machine. She learns everything I throw at her, and she works hard as well. She is becoming a very good medic," Tsunade said, pride filling her voice. "That's great. Sakura-chan is so amazing," Naruto said loudly. Ino, who had been about to walk around a corner, froze. Her head lowered and she bit her lip before turning and running in the opposite direction. Tenchi had sensed her and walked over to Naruto and bonked him on the head. "Ow. What was that for?" Naruto yelled angrily. "Ino heard you. She thinks you like Sakura more than her. Get going," Tenchi said. Naruto paled and looked around. But what should I do?" Naruto asked, starting to panic. "Do you like Sakura better than Ino?" Rin asked seriously. Naruto stared at her as if she had grown a second head. "No, of course not," he replied. "Or do you like Ino more?" Haku asked. "No, I like them the same," Naruto shouted. Tenchi grabbed him. "Then go tell her that," he said, and showed Naruto the direction Ino had run in. Without hesitation, Naruto ran after her, starting to sniff her out. "Will they be okay?" Haku asked. "Yeah, Ino loves him too much to let go of him now," Tenchi said, and continued his walk. Naruto ran as fast as he could, even using chakra to enhance his speed, and soon he saw Ino running into the woods. Hurrying after her, he soon caught up. "Ino-chan!" Naruto yelled. Ino didn't slow down, and Naruto growled, drew on some of Kyuubi's chakra and quickly caught up with her. Grabbing her arm, he made her stop. "Ino-chan, please look at me," Naruto said, but Ino shook her head. She didn't try to fight him off, though. He didn't like how her shoulders shook, and he was sure she was crying. "Ino-chan, you misunderstood. I don't like Sakura-chan more than you. I love you both the same. Please don't run from me," Naruto said. Ino's shaking only worsened. "You're lying. You only want to make me feel better," Ino choked forth, her voice gruff and hoarse. "No, I would never do that. Please believe me, I don't want to hurt you or Sakura-chan." Both of you are too important to me. I never want you to leave me. Naruto said. Ino gave a short noise before pulling her hand from Naruto's grip. Naruto thought she was going to run, but instead she whirled around and clutched herself to Naruto's chest, sobbing. Naruto didn't know what to do, other than hug her and offer as much comfort as he could. With one hand he hugged her closer to him, while the other stroked her platinum hair. After a little while, Naruto bent down and lifted Ino into his arms. She squeaked slightly and wrapped her arms around his neck. He smiled at her before walking over to a nearby tree and sitting down there with her in his lap. She snuggled into his chest, hiccuping slightly. Shish, don't worry, I'm here, Naruto said and hugged Ino tighter. Don't leave me, Ino said weakly. I won't, Naruto replied firmly. They sat there, content with just being with each other, for hours. Then Naruto had an idea. Ino-chan, do you and Sakura-chan want to go out with me tonight? Naruto asked. Ino looked at him before she smiled and snuggled into his chest. I can't answer Sakura, but I wouldn't mind. She said. Naruto beamed. Great. I'll go ask Sakura-chan. Go home and change, and I'll come get you around 6. Naruto said eagerly. Ino couldn't do anything else than smile at his enthusiasm. Sakura was walking home when she felt Naruto's chakra signature. She turned and saw a blonde blur heading towards her. Naruto stopped right in front of her, grinning widely. Hey, Sakura-chan, he said, and Sakura smiled at him. Hello, Naruto-kun, she replied. Sakura-chan, are you doing anything tonight? Naruto asked, slightly nervous. No, nothing except rereading something Tsunade-sensei wanted me to do. Why? Sakura asked. Do you want to go out with me and Ino-chan tonight? Naruto asked. Sakura looked surprised for a second before she smiled widely. Sure, I'd love to, she said. Naruto grinned happily at her. Good. I'll come get you around 6. Okay, Naruto said, but didn't wait to hear the reply. Sakura looked after her boyfriend and smiled at his enthusiasm. She turned and continued on her way, wondering what Naruto was going to do on the date. Not knowing that he was wondering the same thing. Oh man, what am I going to do? Where to take them? Naruto thought frantically. He was sitting on Yondaimi's head, looking out on Konoha, trying to decide what to do on the date. Why don't you ask Wolf, or his mate? Kyuubi suggested. She's not his mate. Naruto shot back. She's not. I don't know. They are rather close. She's even living with him. Kyuubi replied, and Naruto almost saw the age-old fox sitting in a thinking pose. Then Kyuubi's words were processed in Naruto's mind, and he almost fell from Yondaimi's head. Haku! Naruto yelled in surprise, making some people stop and look up, wondering who was yelling. Yeah, that's the one. Isn't she Wolf's mate? Kyuubi asked. Naruto was clearly missing Kyuubi's teasing tone. Of course the fox knew that Tenshi's mate was Rin. I don't know. I suspected she was developing feelings for him, but what about Rin-ne-chan? I have to go talk to Haku. Naruto thought before heading towards where he knew Haku was. Naruto found Haku in a training area, sparring with Tenshi, while Rin watched. They stopped when they sensed Naruto, and he waved at them. How did it go with Ino? Tenshi asked. Good. We have a date tonight. But I have to talk with Haku for a bit. Naruto replied. Haku blinked in confusion, before Naruto formed several kage bunshin. There, now sensei has someone to train with. Come on Haku, please, Naruto asked. Haku sighed and nodded, following reluctantly. She glanced back and saw Tenshi mid-spar with a lot of Naruto clones. She giggled slightly when it appeared that Tenshi didn't have much difficulty, before she followed Naruto, not noticing that Rin was looking at her with a slight smile on her face, before turning to Tenshi. So, what is it, Naruto-kun? Haku asked, when they stopped at a clearing not far from the training area. Naruto turned to her, looking slightly awkward. Haku, I was wondering if you could give me any ideas for what I should do on my date with Ino-chan and Sakura-chan. Naruto asked. Haku looked surprised. Why me? She asked. You are a girl, and I don't want to ask Rin-ne-chan. Naruto reasoned. Haku sighed. Fair enough. Don't you have any idea? Haku asked and Naruto shook his head. Haku thought for a while. Have you gone dancing with them? She asked and Naruto shook his head. Alright, I know what you can do. I've heard of this dance club, called Konoha's Dancing Leaf. Take them there, have dinner with them and have a good time. Haku said, smiling at Naruto, who practically beamed at her. Thanks, Haku, Naruto said happily. She smiled back at him, happy to help. So, anything else you need help with? Haku asked and Naruto suddenly looked embarrassed. I don't know how to dance. Naruto mumbled. Haku blinked, and blinked, before laughing. Naruto glared at her, making her laugh harder. Sorry, Naruto-kun, it's just that I didn't know that. I'm sorry, but I can't help you. I can't dance either, but perhaps Sakura or Ino can help you. Haku suggested. Naruto sighed at that. But I wanted to impress them. He complained. Ask them for help. That'll impress them more. Haku said kindly. Naruto nodded and opened his mouth to speak. But no sound came and he closed it. This repeated itself once, and a thoughtful look crossed his face. Is something wrong, Naruto-kun? Haku asked. The fox said something earlier. Naruto said, very hesitantly. Oh, what did he say? Haku asked, feeling a little nervous. He called you sensei's mate. Naruto said bluntly. Haku was shocked and took a step backwards. Why? Why did he say that? She asked. Naruto hesitated. Because of the way she acts around him. Kyuubi said and Naruto relayed the message. Haku was floored. She thought she hid her feelings. Apparently not. Since not only had she been discovered by a fox inside Naruto's belly, she also had been found out by Rin. Flashback. Haku, can I talk to you? Rin asked. Haku, who had been walking to her room, nodded and held open her door, inviting Rin into it. After Rin's urging, Haku sat down on her bed, looking up at the serious older woman. What did you want to talk to me about? Haku asked. Please, don't let her be found, she thought. I want to talk to you about your feelings, for my boyfriend. Rin said, her voice calm, but cold. Haku swallowed. What are you talking about? She tried, but Rin didn't budge. Don't try that. How are your feelings for Tenchi? Rin asked. He is a good friend and, Haku began but stopped when she saw Rin's look. Haku swallowed again and sighed. It's no use denying it, is there? Haku asked and Rin shook her head. Haku sighed again. Alright, I'll be honest. Haku said and Rin waited patiently. Ever since before I got to know him, after seeing him fight Zabuza-san, I have respected him greatly. And after coming to Konoha, we became friends. But, before I knew it, I started to fall for him. Gradually my love for him grew, and he doesn't even know. Haku said, feeling depressed. Are you sure this isn't some stupid crush? Rin asked, still using the calm, cold tone. Haku vigorously shook her head. I'm sure. I had a crush on Zabuza-san for a while, but this is nothing like that. I can't even begin to describe this feeling. It's like, I know his bad sides, and his good sides, and they don't matter. I love him, despite his bad sides. Haku said and Rin nodded. Good, I just wanted to know. And now that you have been honest with yourself, we can discuss what to do. Rin said and Haku looked at her. Don't worry, I'll move out. I'll get someone else too, she began but was cut off by Rin. No, I didn't mean that, Rin said, her calm, cold tone gone, and replaced with her usual warmth. I have one question, Rin said and Haku looked questionably at her. Do you have anything against? End flashback. Haku. Naruto's voice dragged her out of her memories. Haku shook her head and looked at Naruto. What were we talking about, Naruto-kun? Haku asked. Naruto looked at her before crossing his arms. You were going to tell me how you feel about Sensei. Naruto said, and Haku sighed. He is a good friend, she said. And hopefully something more someday, she added in her thoughts. Is that? Oh, shit. I have to go. See you later, Haku. Naruto called before running towards his apartment, so he could get ready for the date. Phew. That was close, Haku thought before she turned and walked back to Rin and Tenchi. Naruto was just finished with his preparations. Showering, changing, buying flowers for both girls, remembering that he should probably have reserved a table or something, being reassured, this time by Sandame, that the club did have a reservation. How Sandame knew of the date, Naruto didn't want to know. Now, all that remained was to get the girls. Wondering who he was to get first, he suddenly got an idea. Ino smiled as she opened her door and saw Naruto there. He was dressed in a dark red shirt, which was slightly too small, and black pants. He had tried to groom his hair, but it resisted as always. Naruto stared at Ino. She wore a light blue dress that stopped just above her knees. She had her hair tied into her usual ponytail. The difference from normal was that she had a blue ribbon. She smiled at him when she saw he was staring. Shaking his head, he smiled back. You look really pretty, he started, and she giggled. Thanks, handsome, she replied. Ready to go? He asked, and she nodded. Yeah, let's go, she said, grabbed her purse, which was in the same blue as her dress and ribbon, linked her arm with his, and they took off towards the dance club. Sakura skipped happily to the door and opened it to find a grinning Naruto there. She liked his dark red shirt that showed off his muscles, and the black pants fitted him nicely. Naruto also appreciated Sakura's look. She wore a green kimono that perfectly matched her green eyes. The sash was the same pink as her hair. Naruto also spotted a little redness on her cheeks, but didn't know if it was from makeup or something else. Wow, you look beautiful, Sakura-chan, Naruto said, and the redness increased. Thanks, Naruto-kun. You look good too, Sakura replied. Naruto smiled and held out his hand. Should we go? He asked, and she nodded. Taking his hand, she allowed herself to be led towards the dance club. Ino and Sakura were confused for a brief second, seeing first a Naruto standing in front of them at an intersection, and then each other with a Naruto each. Then it clicked, just as the escort Narutos gave them a kiss on the cheek and vanished in twin puffs of smoke. You used Kage Bunshin to get us, Sakura stated, and Naruto nodded. Yeah, I wouldn't want one of you to feel more special than the other, since I love you two the same. Besides, it's not like I don't learn what Bunshin has. Should we go? The real Naruto asked and offered a hand to each girl. They looked at each other before bonking Naruto on the head. Hey, what was that for? Naruto asked, holding two growing lumps. Just to check if you were the real you. The girls started at the same time, each taking an arm each. Naruto sighed, but quickly returned to his happy self. Why wouldn't he, when he was walking with the two people he loved the most, and was hopefully going to have a great date with them? Their walk to the club was nice, the three chatting happily, mostly about their plans for the finals. Tsunade-sensei said she wanted me to master before the finals. Something about disrupting the enemy's movements. What about you two? Sakura asked. Ero Sennin hasn't said anything, Naruto said and pouted, making the girls laugh at him before Ino grinned at him. Well, Sensei said he was going to teach me one of Yondaime's. It's going to be great, Ino said happily, ignoring the looks of jealousy the other two gave her. Which? Sakura and Naruto asked in unison. Ino thought for a few moments. I don't know, but he said I had to become much faster before I could try it, Ino said. Just then they arrived, and walked up to the rather large man standing in front of the door. Reservation? The man asked. Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto said, remembering what Sandaime had said. The man frowned and looked at the list. Oh, here it is. Hokage-sama came and reserved this himself. Have a nice time, the man said and let the three into the club. Naruto ignored the questioning looks his girlfriends sent him. The club was, for lack of better words, alive. It was brimming with life. The club was made of a large room. In the middle was a large dance floor, where lots of people were moving to the beat of the music. Lights in different colors moved this way and that on the floor. A bar was not too far away from the dance floor, separated by 3 steps. Along the walls, lots of tables stood, only lit by candles, creating a romantic scene. Wow, Naruto said. Yeah, Sakura agreed. This is going to be great. Ino said. Glad to hear it. A voice said and the three turned to see a waiter smiling kindly at them, although it got a little strained when he looked at Naruto. If you follow me, I'll take you to your table. The waiter said before leading them towards one of the tables. He then placed a menu in front of them and excused himself. So, what do you want to eat? Naruto asked, silently groaning at the prices. Now I know how sensei feels when he pays for my ramen. Naruto thought, making Kyuubi snicker. The three ordered their meals, and the waiter bowed before leaving. So, Naruto-kun, I didn't know you were a dancer. Sakura stated, making Naruto blush, although it was hardly visible in the dim light. I don't dance. He admitted. You don't? Then why did you take us here? Ino asked, making Naruto blush even deeper. Haku suggested I take you here, he admitted. Oh, the girls said before looking at each other and grinning. Well then, I guess we will just have to teach you, won't we? Ino asked. Yeah, Sakura agreed. Naruto didn't know whether to be happy or not. Tenchi sat on his couch, trying to get a grip with what Rin had just said. He looked like if he had eyes, they would have popped out of their sockets. Are you serious? Tenchi asked, almost dreading the answer. Yes, completely. Rin replied. You seriously want to? Tenchi asked again. Yes, if it makes you too happy. I don't mind, as long as you'll always love me. Rin said. Tenchi turned to the silent member of their little meeting. And you want this too? He asked. Yes, without a doubt. Tenchi rubbed his temples. Naruto just managed to finish his meal, an extra spicy bowl of ramen, before Sakura and Ino grabbed his arms and dragged him towards the dance floor. When they got there, Ino and Sakura looked at Naruto thoughtfully, before turning to each other. They prepared to start what looked like a stone-paper-scissors match. What? He asked. We're just deciding who will dance with you first. Ino replied. It's not like you can dance with us both at the same time. Sakura said. Naruto then grinned and formed a seal. A puff of smoke later, and 2 Narutos stood there. Now I can. Both of them said and grabbed a girl each. Kage Bunshin. Nice. Ino and Sakura thought at the same time, happy that neither of them had to wait. Just then, a slow song began to play. Perfect. Both girls thought. Naruto and Ino. So, Naruto-kun, what you do first is, eep. Ino started but was cut off when Naruto pulled her close to him, placing his left hand at the small of her back, while his right went lower and slightly squeezed her butt. When Ino looked at him, silently wondering what he was doing, Naruto nodded behind her. Ino half turned and saw a couple behind them, the guy holding the girl like Naruto was. I thought it looked nice. Naruto said with a grin and squeezed Ino's butt again, getting a gasp in response. Ino almost scolded him, but she found she liked the way he was holding her, and placed her hands around his neck, pressing up against his body. Well, you were right. Ino said with a smile on her face. The two began to move, slowly with the music. Ino was impressed with how well Naruto was dancing, although she wouldn't have cared if he'd been nervous and sloppy. The hands caressing her had a lot to do with that. Naruto and Sakura. Okay. Naruto-kun. Place your right hand on my left hip, while your left hand holds my right. Sakura instructed. Naruto nodded and did as she told him. Now just follow my lead. Sakura said. Naruto swallowed, suddenly feeling nervous. Then Sakura started moving and he just followed. Sakura wasn't used to being the one to lead, but she tried her best, and after a little while she felt Naruto begin to get it, and led more and more. He's a natural at this. Sakura thought, and smiled, letting Naruto take control. The two of them moved with the flow of the music, relaxing and enjoying each other's company. Then Naruto suddenly twirled Sakura and before she could ask what he was doing, he kissed her. She sighed and kissed back, but Naruto suddenly broke off and they started dancing again. Sakura grinned happily as she was spun and dipped. The music had increased its pace, allowing for faster dancing, which seemed to suit Naruto just fine. When the song ended, they were both exhausted, and hurried over to their table, where Ino and another Naruto were waiting. When they reached them, Naruto sitting next to Ino, puffed away in a cloud of smoke. Ah, so I had the bunshin. Oh well, Ino said and shrugged, taking a sip from her drink. After 3 more dances, the 3 lovebirds were very, very tired. They decided to go home. Once again Naruto made a cage bunshin and the girls left with a Naruto each, all 4 of them smiling brightly, if a bit tiredly. Naruto was a bit disappointed though, as both Sakura and Ino started nodding off while they were walking, and he ended up having to carry them home, not getting the good night kiss he was hoping for. Oh well, there is always next time. Naruto thought with a blush. The next day, 3 genin stood in front of 2 sanin, a junin and a tag along. Tenchi smiled. Alright, here we go. This will be one hell of a month, so you better be prepared for hard training. Tenchi said and the 3 genin looked more eager than concerned. Ino, come with me. We are building speed, Tenchi said. He and Haku turned and started running, forcing Ino to sprint after them, trying to catch up. Sakura came with me. It's time your strength was trained a bit, Tsunade said. Sakura smiled and followed her master, glancing back and waving at Naruto, who waved back. So, that's all. Now it's just you and me, brat, Jiraiya said, placing a bag he was holding down on the floor. So, what are you teaching me now, Arrow Sennin? Naruto asked. Jiraiya got an evil glint in his eyes, and emptied the bag. A lot of stones, some the size of oranges, while others were smaller. The smallest ones looked the size of marbles. Intuitive reaction, Jiraiya said and threw a stone at Naruto. Naruto squeaked and dodged. Shaking a hand at Jiraiya, he roared. What was that for, you stupid pervert? Intuitive reaction. By making you dodge like that, your body learns how to react without thinking. It'll allow you to dodge objects much faster, and more importantly, more safely. Now shut it and dodge, Jiraiya said and threw more stones. Oh shit, Naruto thought. Sensei, where are we going? Ino asked. Speed training. Come on, I know you can run faster than that, Ino. Tenchi replied while looking towards her, a big grin on his face. Not when you increase my weights twice as much as normal, Ino grumbled. Tenchi chuckled while Haku looked slightly concerned for Ino's safety. And release, Sakura shouted, releasing the chakra she had built up in her fist at the moment of impact with the training dummy. A small explosion erupted and when the smoke cleared, the training dummy had a huge dent in it. Good, but your control isn't there yet. Again, Tsunade ordered. Sakura complied. Good, now to increase the difficulty, Jiraiya said and threw a rock at the tired Naruto, before forming seals. Kage Iwa Bunshin no, Shadow Rock clones, Jiraiya said and the 1 stone multiplied. Crap, Naruto thought. Eek, help, Ino screamed, while running from a seemingly mad wolf, summoned by Tenchi, who was running next to her. Haku had been unable to keep up, and the only thing keeping Ino running was the fact that if she let her speed drop even slightly, the wolf would snap his jaws behind her. Needless to say, she discovered she could run really fast when needed to. I think we should do something else for a while. Tsunade said thoughtfully, looking at the destruction Sakura had caused on the poor dummy. I'm going to start teaching you what I was talking about. Tsunade said, getting a happy look from the pink-haired girl, currently sitting on the ground, huffing and puffing. Okay, listen up. As you know, the body has nerves, and the nerves communicate using electricity, Tsunade began. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Tenchi, Rin and Haku sat in Tenchi and Haku's living room, drinking tea, or in Tsunade and Jiraiya's case, sake. How are Lee and Hinata? Tenchi asked the question that had been bothering them for a while. Tsunade sighed and drained her dish. Hinata will be up and running in about a week. Lee, it's more difficult. Tsunade sighed and poured herself some more sake. How so? Haku asked. Lee has bone fragments in the central nerve system. Removing them is dangerous. Rin explained. Is there a way for you to help him? Tenchi asked and Tsunade slowly nodded, but didn't say anything. After a little while, Tenchi turned to Haku. She nodded. Haku answered the unasked question. Oh, sorry, I forgot, Tsunade said, but Tenchi just shrugged. If you can help him, then why don't you? Tenchi asked. Because there is only a 50% chance of success, and if the operation fails, he'll die. Tsunade said. A grim silence lowered itself over the room, everyone thinking hard. Then Tenchi got an idea. Naruto, he said. Huh? The others asked. The fox heals Naruto. If you study how the fox does that, then you could imitate that, and use that to heal Lee. Tenchi said, and Tsunade's eyebrows practically disappeared into her hair. That's brilliant. How come I didn't think of that? Tsunade said, making Tenchi grin. Tenchi, can I ask you something? Jiraiya asked after a moment of silence. Tenchi swallowed the tea he was drinking and nodded. What are you going to do about the Hyuga heir? Jiraiya asked and Tenchi frowned. Short term, I'm taking her with me when I take Ino on our training trip. Long term, I have no idea. Hopefully I will be able to help her become strong enough that the damn Hyugas will get off her case. Tenchi replied. I see. Good luck with that. You'll need it, Jiraiya said. The others knew that was all too true. Sensei? Ino asked, looking at Tenchi worriedly. He hadn't moved since she tried to teach him. Do that again, Tenchi said weakly. Ino shrugged and prepared to use it once more. Naruto, Sakura and Ino were walking towards the stadium. They had changed during the month of training. Naruto's muscles were leaner and stronger, developed for more speed and agility than before. The girls had also gotten more muscles, although to Naruto and the girls' relief, the muscles made them look more mature and more attractive, not the opposite, as they had feared. Sakura now wore black gloves to battle, and had her hair cut. Before, her hair reached her mid-back, now her hair reached just below her chin. Ino had also cut her hair, but not as much as Sakura. Her hair reached down to her shoulders, although she kept it in her usual ponytail. Naruto didn't change his hair at all. All three of them had an air of confidence about them, both in their own abilities, and the abilities of each other. Finally, time to kick some Hyuga butt, Naruto said enthusiastically. Oh, but Naruto-kun, I just got healed completely. A voice said. The three turned to see Tenchi, Haku and Hinata walk up to them. Hey, Hinata-chan, how are you? Naruto asked, while running to her and gave her a big hug. Just fine, Naruto-kun. The elders have stopped complaining about my loss now, Hinata said with a huge smile, while a rather strong blush adorned her face. Oh, how did that happen? Sakura asked. Haku snickered. Let me give you a hint. A bone mask and a shitload of killer intent, Haku said, and Tenchi grinned. I never knew old bastards like that could get so white. Don't think that's too healthy, Tenchi said, remembering when he had enough of the Hyuga elders. Flashback. Tenchi was just about to make himself some tea, Haku being with Rin for something, they refused to tell him, when he sensed someone about to knock on his door. Hello, he called, and the person outside the door paused, before opening the door and peering in. Tenshi-san, Hanabi asked. Oh, Hanabi. What brings you here? Tenshi asked, waving Hanabi inside. It's Nichan. Hanabi said, her voice sounding strained and filled with worry. Tenshi's face went from happy and smiling, to frowning and serious in the matter of seconds. Tell me, he said, and Hanabi nodded. Hanabi was half jogging behind Tenshi, trying to keep up with the fast, long strides of the angry Junin. Tenshi was fuming. That damn council, Tenshi thought, increasing his pace even more. He almost forgot about Hanabi. When he heard that she had to run to keep up, he stopped, picked her up and started walking again. What are you going to do when we get home? Hanabi asked. Tenshi didn't answer right away. But after a few moments of silence. Don't worry about that. It's time those bastards were put in their place. Tenshi replied. Being beaten by a branch member. Pitiful. The only thing keeping us from removing you from the air position is, the head of the Hyuga council roared towards a scared-looking Hinata, but he was interrupted when the door to the council room flew open, and an angry Tenshi walked in, carrying Hanabi, whose face looked like a strange mix between excitement and worry. What are you doing? Get out, a council member said. Tenshi replied by letting Hanabi down. Tenshi-san, Hinata said, unsure about why he was there. Hinashi was sure, however, and tried desperately to hide his smirk. Tenshi had his head bowed after he let Hanabi down, but then his head snapped up, revealing a bone mask appearing. Listen and listen well, bastard council members. Tenshi growled, the menacing wolf mask frightening the more weaker members. The extreme killing intent rolling of Tenshi scared the rest. Touch Hinata, and you'll experience hell. Tenshi said calmly, and the council didn't know what they preferred, his growl, or his calm talking. But she's weak. She got beaten by a lowly branch member. A brave member responded. The glare from the empty eye sockets of the infuriated Junin silenced him rather quickly though. Is she weak? What would you do if you got your seal off? Would you keep fighting, even though you knew you could die because of it? Hinata did, and that speaks of courage and mental strength, far more important than physical strength. Tenshi said, and Hinata blushed slightly at the praise, while Hanabi, who was now holding onto Hinata's hand, smiled at her, feeling proud of her older sister. She still lost. The head of the council said again. Which only points to the weakness of the Jiyukin. Without chakra, a Hyuga is useless in battle. It's not Hinata's fault that she lost. Tenshi growled back. Then whose fault is it? Hiyashi asked, more curious than anything. This clan. If you would lose the superior complex, and stop teaching just the Jiyukin, then Hinata wouldn't have lost like that. The Hyuga are extremely limited, and Hinata needs flexibility. Tenshi replied. Your point? The head of the council asked. Soon, I will leave the village on a training trip. I'm taking one of my students, and I'm also taking Hinata. Tenshi replied. What? The entire council roared, forgetting that they were supposed to be calm, superior Hyugas. I'm taking Hinata with me, and I'll make her strong. That way, you bastards won't have any reason to give her the caged bird seal. Hiyashi-san has already given his approval, along with Hokage-sama. You have no say in the matter. Tenshi growled, slightly increasing his killing intent, making one of the council wet himself. The council, after trying to shake off the effects of the killing intent, began mumbling between each other. Who are you taking with you, in addition to Hinata? A member asked. That is irrelevant. Tenshi replied. End flashback. So now, the Hyuga Council are too busy trying to find out who Tenshi-san is taking with him on the training trip, to yell at me for losing to Neji-Nisan. Hinata said happily. Tenshi smirked, obviously not feeling remorseful in the slightest. Sakura looked at Hinata, smiling knowingly. So, you are going to train with sensei. Are you really okay with that? She asked. Hinata nodded hesitantly. Yes, why? She asked. No reason, just be prepared for some really hard training. Ino said with a laugh. Tenchi coughed and Hinata looked a little worried. Hey, we're here, Haku said, trying to lighten the mood. Naruto, Sakura and Ino looked up and grinned. It's time, they thought. The Chunin hopeful stood in the center of a large stadium. The stadium was made to look like a clearing in the woods, with a few trees and bushes to hide in. The crowds were in 3 stands, which were packed. Not one seat was empty. Naruto, Ino and Sakura looked around and found that Tenchi, Haku and Hinata had joined Rin, Hiyashi and Hanabi in the important clan stand, where the most important clans sat. It looked strange to most that the cold Hyuga had let commoners sit next to him, although Tenchi could hardly be counted as common. Try to look confident. You are the stars of this show. A Junin named Genma said. Where's Hayate and Sasuke? Naruto asked, noting the missing Junin and Uchiha. Genma didn't answer. Instead, Sandaime stood up. Welcome to the 3rd test of the Chunin exam. This is where you make your village proud by showing your strength and abilities. I wish you the best of luck. Sandaime said and Genma pulled out a piece of paper. There have been some changes to the lineup. Since Dosu Kinuta has been detained from taking the exam, Aburame Shino will face whoever wins the 4th match. Now, can anyone but the 2 that are fighting step up to the participants area? Genma asked. Everyone but a confident Ino and a bored Shikamaru went up to the area where they would be waiting, while observing the fights. When he passed her, Naruto laid a hand on Ino's shoulder. Good luck, Ino-chan, he said and she smiled at him before he walked away. Don't lose, Ino pig. Sakura joked. Same to you, forehead. Ino shot back. Tenchi, who heard them, chuckled at the exchange. Those 2. He thought, and if he could, he would have rolled his eyes. First fight, Yamanaka Ino against Nara Shikamaru. Begin. Genma called. Okay, how do I do this? He's a genius at planning, but his fighting ability isn't that great. But if I get in close, he could lure me into a trap. Also his shadow is dangerous. If I get caught in that, then I'm finished. I could try the new sensei taught me, but I only have 1 shot and it still leaves me too open to counter-attack. No, I think I'll try him out first, to measure his skill, before I use that. Ino thought, and formed some seals. Futon. Kei's no Ken. Wind sword Ino called and something transparent formed in her hand. She grabbed it and flung it towards Shikamaru, who noted that it moved much faster than it should by that throw. He just barely got out of the way. Glancing behind him, he sweat dropped when he saw the 2 trees that fell, having been cut in half by Ino's. She's trying to kill me. Shikamaru thought before turning back to Ino. Troublesome, he said, formed some seals and his shadow stretched towards Ino, who just stood there and let herself be caught. That's too easy, Shikamaru thought and sure enough, suddenly 2 shuriken came flying towards him. But with a cry of, Cage shuriken no, the 2 shuriken split into 30, making Shikamaru's eyes widen. He scrambled out of the way, but wasn't fast enough to escape unwounded. 2 small cuts appeared on his left arm. Cage shuriken no, Ino called again, and Shikamaru hurried through the seals. Cage Tate no, shadow shield, he called and his shadow stretched and rose up around him, creating a solid, black wall which the 30 shuriken bounced off. Ino frowned, before getting an idea and forming seals of her own. Shikamaru quickly let the wall down, since he couldn't see through it, and he didn't know what Ino could do if he kept it up. Looking around, he saw Ino standing in the middle of the arena, staring at him. Why is Ino-san just standing there? Hanabi asked. She, like most Hyuga, didn't know much about ninjutsu and she was only in the academy, but she wanted to learn. You'll see, Hayashi replied. He smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm, knowing that she would do good at watching these fights. Perhaps I can persuade Tenchi to train Hanabi too. Hayashi thought, glancing over at Tenchi, who seemed focused on a seemingly empty spot in the arena. Shikamaru did not like this. Something was not right. He knew that Ino was smarter than the Ino just standing there out in the open. She must have set a trap. Shikamaru thought before positioning himself in his thinking pose, leaned up against the arena wall. Damn, he's serious now. Ino thought, before thinking of some more moves she perhaps would have to pull. Alright, here goes. Ino thought and formed a seal. Shikamaru's eyes widened. He felt presence all around him. Oh crap, he thought and quickly got his shadow shield up. Just as he did, several kunai and air bullets struck, bouncing off the black shield. Shikamaru let it down, and quickly dived behind some trees, hiding in the shadows. How troublesome, he thought, looking out from behind the tree to see Ino standing in the same spot. As I thought, that is an illusion. She's hiding somewhere. But what is she planning? Shikamaru thought, trying to sense where Ino was hiding. He didn't see the illusion. Pull out a kunai. A special kunai with 3 blades. That's, Hiyashi said, and Tenshi looked at Rin. She took out the kunai. Rin clarified and Tenshi grinned. Shikamaru heard a kunai being thrown and dodged it. He saw the tri-tipped kunai sail past him and just managed to think. What the? Before Ino's hand smashed into his face, sending him flying. He flipped in mid-air and landed on his feet, but Ino charged after him and threw a kick that knocked the air out of the shadow user. The next kick sent him flying into another tree, and before he could react, 3 Inos stood around him, each holding the final seal for them. Give up, Ino commanded. What was that? Shikamaru asked, still feeling dazed. Hiroshin no. Sensei taught it to me. Ino said with a grin on her face. You taught her Hiroshin? Hiroshi asked in an accusing tone, looking between Ino and Tenshi. After he asked and looked from Ino to Tenshi one last time, he was met with a very cold expression. If Tenshi had eyes, the glare would have been able to freeze water. You seem to forget that I was adopted by Yondaime. When he did, I became part of his clan. Also, when he left me all of his, he did so I could master them. And as his son, although adoptive, I decide who I will teach him to. Besides, that was as good as Ino will get it, at least for a long while. If you noticed, her Hiroshin is not complete. She hasn't mastered it, and can only use it once. Tenshi said coldly. Flashback. Ino, this is the reason I wanted you to become so much faster. Tenshi said and pulled out a tri-tipped kunai. Ino looked at it curiously. Haku wasn't much better. This is a special kunai, known as a Hiroshin kunai. It has seals on it that alerts me when it flies and hits the ground. It allows me to use Yondaime's signature, the Hiroshin. Tenshi said and threw the kunai. When it landed next to a tree on the other side of the training area, Ino looked between Tenshi and the kunai. Watch me closely, Ino. Tenshi said and formed half a ram seal. In a flash of blue light, he was gone. Ino's eyes widened and she looked over to the kunai. Sure enough, there stood Tenshi, right where the kunai was. This allows me to instantly travel to where the kunai is. I could go deep into explaining how it works, but that would take lots of time, and probably confuse the hell out of both of you. It did to me. The short explanation is that it is almost like summoning. You summon yourself to where the kunai is. I want you to be able to use this before the exam. Tenshi explained. Ino, who practically had stars in her eyes from learning such a cool, not to mention it was a signature of the supposedly strongest Hokage yet, was very eager. A day before the exam, Ino threw her Hiroshin kunai at Tenshi and formed the seals, activating the. She appeared about 2 feet in front of where Tenshi, and most importantly, the kunai was. Why can't I do this? Ino panted. Tenshi smiled slightly and walked over to her, handing her kunai back to her. I think I know why. The Hiroshin is a very high level, A rank at least, possibly S rank. Why I won't bother to explain, since I'm sure you know how difficult it is. You must have noticed the difference in when I use mine, and you use yours. To you, there is no flash, you only travel after the kunai for a certain distance, and you can't only use more than one kunai. Also, it drains a lot of chakra. I guess you can use it once or twice at the most. Also, since you don't travel to the kunai, but after it, you can put yourself open to counter attacks. This will be your ace in the hole, a last resort. Tenchi said, and Ino, who was steadying herself on her knees, nodded before looking at Tenchi. Then why did you want me to learn it? She asked. Tenchi turned and pointed at Haku, who was practicing her demonic ice mirrors. Haku's ice mirrors have a similar way of working to the Hiroshin kunai, at least I think so. But in order for her to use it effectively, she has to be fast. And from what she told me, she became much faster while working to master it. You had to become faster before I taught you Hiroshin, but you have also become faster while trying to learn it. Your ability to read your opponent while at high speeds has increased because of our training. That is why, and it gives you a that can help you turn the tide in a fight, or escape deadly situations. Tenchi said, and once again Ino nodded. Good, you agree. Now let's continue your exercises. Tenchi said. Ino briefly stopped to wonder how he knew she had nodded, before feeling Tenchi's chakra sphere. Yes, sensei. Ino said and began running again. End flashback. I see. So, she can't master that. Hiyashi said, and Tenchi shook his head. Not yet, at least. I have a feeling Naruto can though. But that is Jiraiya's problem for now. Tenchi replied. Still, that was so cool. Hanabi said excitedly, and Tenchi chuckled. I'm sure it was. He replied. Shikamaru knew he didn't have more than one chance. But that was all he needed. He let a flashbang fall under him, unnoticed by Ino until it was too late. As the flash went off, Shikamaru formed the seal for his family. His shadow, having grown larger from the flash, extended and connected with the three Ino shadows. Kage main no, success. Shikamaru said, and the Inos didn't look very happy. At all. Before they smirked and puffed away in 3 clouds of smoke, Ino came jumping out of a bush to Shikamaru's left. Futon. Taitama. Ino called and shot 2 air bullets towards Shikamaru, who just managed to get his shield up once again. Damn, I'll get him with this. Ino thought and jumped towards Shikamaru, getting ready to pound him good. But she couldn't move. Kage Tate and Kage main combo, success. Shikamaru said, and Ino kicked herself mentally for being caught. She didn't have any way out. Shikamaru walked them out from under the trees and raised his hand, forcing Ino to copy his movements. A moment of silence where Naruto, Sakura, Haku and Rin held their breaths, before. I give up, Shikamaru stated. Went through the crowd. I have only enough chakra left to keep you trapped for another 5 seconds. Using the shadow shield so many times burned me out. I won't be able to win in 5 seconds. I lose, Shikamaru stated, and his shadow left Ino's. Ino for her part was utterly confused. Had she won or lost? It only came clear to her when Genma announced her as the winner. I won. Yay, I won, she cheered. While walking to the contestants' stand, she smiled brightly, before realization set in. I won only because he's lazy. Damn you, Shikamaru, she yelled, and those closest to her, Naruto, Sakura, Haku and Tenchi, plus her parents, chuckled at her little explosion. Naruto stood in front of a confident-looking Neji. Naruto had never felt himself wanting a fight more than at that moment. Memories of Hinata's fight with Neji kept replaying in Naruto's head. You look like you want to say something. Neji taunted. Naruto responded by holding his clenched fist out towards Neji. You're going down, he growled. For Hinata. He added, making Neji snort. Second fight, Uzumaki Naruto against Hyuga Neji. Begin. Genma called and jumped away. Naruto started by pulling out some shuriken and throwing them at Neji. Neji smirked and used a kunai and blocked the shuriken. You'll have to do better than that, Neji said confidently. Oh, I intend to. Naruto shot back, having started some seals while Neji focused on the shuriken. Neji's eyes widened, understanding from the amount of seals that this was big. Raiden. Raiden no, Naruto called and a blue lightning bolt shot out from his hands. Neji managed to begin spinning and just formed a dome of chakra when Naruto called him. Neji's cry of, Kaden, spiral, was drowned out by the thunder that followed Naruto's. A huge cloud of dust followed after the lightning struck the spinning chakra dome, hiding Neji from view. When the dust cleared, a winded Neji stood in the middle of a crater, unharmed, although his clothes were a bit singed. That was, Hinata and Hanabi said in unison. Kaden, Hiashi answered and Tenchi smirked. I see. Poor Neji, he said and everyone looked at him. Why do you say that? Kaden is the ultimate defense of the Hyuga. The fact that a branch member has mastered it, Hiashi began but was cut off by Tenchi, who didn't bother to hide his annoyance. Main or branch doesn't matter much. And you are right, Kaden is a very good defense move, but you tend to depend on it a lot. And Naruto knows the perfect move for turning Neji's Kaden into a Neji shredder. Tenchi said and Hiashi's eyes widened. You mean, he trailed off, not wanting to confirm his guess. Rasengan. The Kaden is chakra being spun one way. Rasengan is chakra being spun in random directions at once. If Naruto uses Rasengan against Neji's Kaden, then the Rasengan will overpower the Kaden, and convert it into a giant Rasengan, shredding Neji in the process. Rasengan may be small, but it is immensely powerful. If Naruto realizes this, he can win without difficulty. Tenchi said, his face unreadable from that statement. If Naruto did know he could win that easily, he didn't show it. He looked at Neji, a calm calculating look in his eyes. Sakura and Ino recognized the look from when he was completely serious, like when he tried to master the Rasengan. His defense is very good. Probably as good as Gaara's. But he has to activate it each time. It's not automatic. If I can lure him, and then get close enough to touch him, I can use that. Alright, here goes. Naruto thought, but before he could do anything, Neji began to speak. You should give up. Fate has chosen me as the winner of this fight. You cannot fight your fate. Neji said and Naruto snorted. You can. And don't give me that crap about the Hyuga's cage bird seal. I know that already. Naruto responded. Neji looked a little surprised, but composed himself quickly. So you know what awaits Hinata-sama. Her fate is set, and there is nothing she can do to change. Neji said. Tenchi snorted when he heard that, making Hinata, Hanabi and Hayashi look at him questionably. Are you stupid? Fate, fate, fate. Can't you say anything else? Fate is only something you blame all your problems on. You don't try to solve your problems, instead you lay down and blame it on fate. You are a so-called genius, who gets power handed to him. Hard work is what makes true power. I'll prove that to you right now. Naruto said and pulled out 4 kunai and 5 shuriken. First he threw a kunai right in front of Neji, making him jump back. Then he threw 2 shuriken, again making Neji dodge. Then, timing as best as he could, Naruto threw the remaining 3 kunai and shuriken at Neji, just as he stopped moving from his dodge. Neji saw the flying weapons, and with a cry of, Kaden, Neji activated his defense and deflected the weapons. But just as he finished his Kaden, Naruto was upon him with 3 clones. The clones threw punches at Neji, which he blocked, leaving him open for the real Naruto, who slapped him. The audience, as well as both Genma and Neji, blinked several times. Neji held a hand to his stinging cheek. Did he just? Haku asked Rin, who nodded slowly. He slapped Neji. A real bitch slap too. Sakura said, not believing her eyes. Ino's mouth was close to the ground. Tenchi heard everyone mumbling and chuckling. So, Jiraiya did teach him that. I'll lose track of him, again. He predicted. What do you mean? Hanabi asked. Wait and see. Tenchi said, smirking slightly. What was that? Neji asked, disbelief filling his voice. Naruto grinned and rubbed his head sheepishly. Ups. Sorry about that. It was meant to be a punch. Naruto responded. Neji shook his head and lowered his hand, revealing a red cheek, and some sort of mark made of kanji. Mumbles went through the audience when they saw that, each wondering what that was. Neji went into his fighting pose, but narrowed his eyes when he saw that Naruto was forming seals. He didn't recognize the seals, though. Naruto ended with the ram seal and vanished. Neji's eyes widened and he felt a kunai being pressed to his throat. Give up, Naruto ordered, pressing the kunai just tight enough to Neji's throat, that a small trickle of blood came. Neji raised his hand, as if to give up, but suddenly he swung his hand down and attempted to strike Naruto to the head. Naruto saw this, let go of his kunai and jumped away. Naruto felt disappointed that he had lost his advantage. What did you use? Neji asked and Naruto smirked. Not telling. I haven't mastered it anyway. Naruto responded. What was that? Haku asked, looking between Tenchi and Rin. Shunshin no Jutsu. Both Rin and Tenchi replied. 2 of Yondaimi's signature are shown in one exam. Just who are your students? Don't tell me the last one will come here and use Rasengan. Or summon Gamabunta? Hiashi asked, his tone without emotion, although Tenchi recognized the question as wondering and as close to joking as he had ever heard Hayashi. No and no. Sakura can't use either of them, but Naruto can do both of what you said. But again, this isn't complete. Both Naruto and Ino can use a signature of Yondaime, but neither has mastered it. Naruto had to use seals to activate them, along with the focus mark. Shunshin is meant to be without seals. Tenchi explained. Still, this is the best display of Yondaimes since you took the Chunin exam. Rin commented and Tenchi nodded. Neji looked at his opponent, wondering how to beat him. But before he could do anything, Naruto spoke up. Tell me, why do you believe so much in fate? Naruto asked. Neji looked at him before taking off his headband. Because of this, Neji said and pointed to a green seal on his forehead. The seal looked like an X with a hook on the left and on the right. Because of his fate as a branch member, my father had to die for his brother, Hyuga Hiyashi-sama. They were only separated by a few minutes, but their fate was sealed when Hiyashi-sama was born first. Fate is something you cannot change. Neji said, sadness and anger plain as day in his voice. Naruto stared at Neji for a moment, before shaking his head. My father gave his life for this village, but that does not mean it was his fate. It was his choice. He could have chosen not to die for this village. But he did. Just as I will break my fate as an outcast and drop out and become Hokage. You say it is my fate to lose this fight. Then I'll beat you and prove that you can change your fate. Naruto said forcibly and formed seals again. Neji activated his Byakugan, making Naruto smirk. He finished with the ram seal, just as Neji prepared to use Kaden. Uzumaki combo. Furashu Shunshin no Sun Flash Body Flicker, Naruto called, and a bright light came, too fast for Neji to close his eyes. He screamed and clutched his eyes, or at least moved to do so, but he felt not 1, not 2, but 4 kunai pressed towards various spots on his body. 1 at his throat, 1 at his hearth, 1 at his spine and 1 at a kidney. Give up. 4 voices came. Neji couldn't see, but recognized it as Naruto's. He must have made Kage Bunshin's. I can't win here, Neji thought, but before he could say anything, Naruto spoke up. Don't even try anything. It's not worth fighting on, if you'll give up your or your teammates' lives. A mission or exam isn't as important as the life of the team. Naruto said and Tenchi smiled. This fight is over. Winner. Uzumaki Naruto. Genma said. Immediately, the Narutos let go of Neji, who slumped down to the ground. I lost. Impossible. He thought before he looked up and saw Naruto jumping around, celebrating his victory. Maybe he was right. Neji thought but was cut off by Naruto stopping in front of him, holding out a hand. Huh. Neji blinked in confusion. Come on, let's get out of here. We're in the way of the next fight. Naruto said and pulled Neji to his feet before walking back to the contestant's stand, while Neji went with some medic nins to check out his vision. Naruto-kun fought well, Haku said and Tenshi nodded. Yes, he did. You taught him well, dear. Rin said and Tenshi had the decency to blush. I wonder where my father went. Hanabi said and looked after her father. I'm sure he'll be back soon. Tenshi said. Third fight, Haruno Sakura against Sabaku no Kankuro. Contestants, get down here. Genma called and Sakura began to make her way to the arena, but Kankuro didn't move. I hate this. And against a girl too. He thought and raised his hand. I'm going to give up. He called, shocking people. Genma looked at him before sighing. Winner, Haruno Sakura. He called. Sakura blinked, before she cursed. I wanted to show my new self. Damn, she said and walked up to Naruto and Ino. Uchiha Sasuke has not shown up yet. Therefore he is. Genma began but was cut off when a whirl of leaves came in the middle of the stadium and Sasuke and Kakashi showed up in the middle of the whirl. Sasuke looked even more like the Dark Avenger he was. He wore a black outfit with the Uchiha fan on the back. His hands and legs were covered in bandages and some sort of black belt. Kakashi scratched his head and looked at Genma. Are we late? He asked, making most of the audience sweat drop. No, just in time. Genma said, although it was clear he was annoyed. Sasuke didn't even listen. Instead he looked up at the stands and searched for someone. He smirked when he saw Haku and looked straight at her, smirking confidently. She blinked in confusion and leaned over and said something to Rin, leaning on Tenshi in the process. Sasuke lost his smirk when he saw that, instead he seemed angry. Sabaku no Gaara. Get down here. Genma called. Sasuke looked as his opponent came down, and Kakashi went up and sat down next to Rin. Fourth fight, Uchiha Sasuke against Sabaku no Gaara. Begin. Genma almost didn't manage to finish before sand exploded off Gaara towards Sasuke. Sasuke quickly jumped away, and threw some shuriken at Gaara. The shuriken was stopped by Gaara's sand, and thrown back. Sasuke deflected the shuriken with a kunai and rushed in towards Gaara. The sand went to block him, but he smirked and vanished. Wah! Gaara said before Sasuke reappeared behind him. Okay. I lost him for a moment there. What happened? Tenshi asked. Sasuke vanished and reappeared behind Gaara. He's much faster than before. Haku said and Tenshi looked thoughtful. Sasuke punched Gaara, sending him flying. Before he hit the ground, Sasuke appeared and hit him again. When Gaara landed with a crash, his skin had cracked. That must be your armor of sand. I'll tear it off, Sasuke said, glanced up at the stands, more accurately a certain dark-haired girl, and sped off again. He struck Gaara again and again, going at speeds equal to what Lee had when he took off his weights. Tenshi turned towards Kakashi. How did you get him so fast in 1 month? He asked and Kakashi grinned, but didn't answer. He is as fast as I am when I use my mirrors. Haku commented and Kakashi looked at her, before turning back to the fight, or his book. No one knew for sure. Sasuke continued his assault, but stopped when Gaara encased himself in a sphere of sand. Sasuke stood there panting, and tried to regain his breath. That sphere. There has to be something with it. Sasuke thought and rushed towards it, delivering a kick to it, only to have his foot almost pierced by spikes of sand. The only thing that saved him was the Sharingan he had activated. Sasuke jumped back and stared at the sphere. He then smirked and undid the belt he had on his right arm. Then he formed seals and focused chakra into his arm. Sparks started to fly and a blue glow came from his hand. A sound, like the chirping of a lot of birds, came. That is, Naruto said, recognizing this as something Kakashi had shown him once. Chidori. 1,000 birds, Sasuke and Naruto said in unison. Sasuke then rushed towards the sphere as fast as he could. Spikes once again flew at him, but he dodged and plunged the Chidori into the sphere. They went into the sphere and a scream of pain came. What was that? Hanabi asked. Chidori. Kakashi's only original. It focuses a lot of chakra into the arm, along with electricity, turning the arm into a sword. The user thrusts his arm at the target. Its penetrating power is better than any other I know about. Rin said and Tenchi nodded slowly. Perhaps only second to the Tenni. Kakashi said and again Tenchi nodded. Suddenly Sasuke's face contracted with pain and he hurriedly pulled his arm out of the sphere. An arm of sand followed, but the arm was different. The sand was much lighter in color, and with blue markings. It also looked demonic. What is that? Sasuke thought, looking at the sphere. Suddenly he saw an evil-looking eye inside and flinched. Then the sphere crumbled, revealing Gaara clutching a wound in his chest. Sasuke was about to move, but an explosion went off at the cage box, making him stop. Smoke rose from the stand. What the? Sasuke thought, before he saw Gaara collapse. Temari and Kankuro appeared next to him, along with their Junin sensei. Genma appeared next to Sasuke. An invasion. What is the sand thinking? Genma said. Then Temari and Kankuro left with the unconscious Gaara. Genma looked at Sasuke and nodded towards where they left. This isn't an exam anymore. This is war. Go after them and stop them. Genma said and Sasuke nodded before following. In the stands, people started falling asleep. Most of the ninjas recognized the genjutsu and cancelled it, including Sakura, Naruto and Ino. They rushed towards where Tenchi was, encountering some ninjas from Sound and Sand. Naruto used a Rasengan, while Ino used a wind blade and Sakura simply punched, sending the ninja she punched flying. Tenchi was busy fighting too. He immediately went into his weapon mode and meditative state. He saw Hiashi coming and disposed of some Sound ninjas following. Take Hinata and Hanabi and go. Tenchi ordered. Hinashi looked hesitant for a moment, probably not used to taking orders, before nodding and doing as Tenchi said. He along with several others from various clans began fighting their way out of the stadium, Hinata and even Hanabi helping. Rin and Haku both stood back to back, defending each other. They tensed when a tornado of sorts came and knocked away some sand ninjas. Don't worry. That was just Naruto with a Rasengan. Tenchi informed, while making a barbecue of two Sound ninjas. Just as he said, Naruto appeared with Sakura and Ino. Well, don't you three look strong? Kakashi commented when he saw them. You were late, the three newly arrived yelled at Kakashi. Never mind that. This is war. We have to fight. Tenchi said and turned to look at the cage box. An Anbu looked at the roof above the cage box, where a barrier just appeared. He saw that Orochimaru unmasked himself and released Sarutobi, who walked over to where Tsunade stood. She had been with him when the attack started. So our attack begins. The destruction of Konoha shall commence. The Anbu said and the Sound ninjas behind him nodded in agreement. The Anbu then turned to look at the stands where the major clans sat, just in time to see Tenchi decapitate a Sand shinobi. The Anbu chuckled, spotting a familiar Sound shinobi making his way towards the blind ninja. I'm glad I managed to heal him. The Anbu thought and chuckled some more. I'll go help Hokage-sama. Help as many from Konoha as you can, and dispose of as many enemies as you encounter. Tenchi ordered Naruto, Sakura, Ino, Haku and Rin. Tenchi didn't wait to hear the confirmation, instead he jumped towards where he knew Sandaime was. But before he reached the cage seats, he had to dodge some small objects that had been aimed at hitting him. Had he been able to see clearer, he would have recognized the objects as projectiles of bone. He landed in the arena, and someone landed in front of him. That someone had gray hair, green eyes, 2 red dots in his forehead, red mascara and wore a uniform that signified him as an elite from Sound, purple rope belt and all. I will not let you interfere with Orochimaru-sama's plans. Your fight is with me, White Wolf. Kimamaru said, and pulled a bone sword out of his shoulder, while activating his cursed seal. Yo, Kin Ryu Chikara here. 17 chap finished. Oh, cliffhanger. Bet you didn't see him coming. I have gotten some questions about my list. The reason Haku, Rin and Tenchi don't stand there, well, I want to keep them a secret. Surprise and all. Also, the list only includes that Team 7 has shown. Not everyone they know. That too is so I can keep the element of surprise. Also, those that will object to Ino knowing Hiroshин, bite me. Tenchi is Yondaimi's son, adoptive, and can decide to teach whoever he wants. Besides, it's not like she can use it effectively. The same goes for Naruto and Shunshin. Oh, and about the Kaden turning into a big Rasengan. Got that from a FIC I read once. I can't remember the name, but it was really good. Anyway, I gave it some thought, and the concept seemed logical enough. So I used it. Sorry to you who came up with the idea first. Send me a note, and I'll credit you in the next chapter. The translation page I use for my original www. Freedict Jap. HTML, minus the spaces. I have noticed some confusion for ages, yes, I'm referring to my slightly crazy friend, and have decided to clear some up. Naruto, Sakura, Ino are 13, Haku is 16, Tenchi is 18 and Rin hits me whenever I ask. Ow, stop that. Runs and hides. Tenchi is Kaden, Sweden while Rin is Doden, Futon. This was just the beginning, the real secret will unfold in the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to see what happens next. See you again in the next journey of Uzumaki Empire 2.0.